Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. I am very, very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Frieda Birnbaum, author of Life Begins at 60. And if you tuned in last week, you know that we were looking at breaking through barriers and labels and prejudgments and ways to live life according to someone else's dictum and traditional scripts. And we have so many more choices these days. And Dr. Frieda, you talked about first your very unique claim to fame is that you had a set of twins at the age of 60. After you already had children, your children were teenagers at the time when you had infants, and that was 16 years ago. You're now 76, and your new twins are teenagers themselves, and you did not want any restrictions on your life. Your husband wanted more children. You wanted more children. You made the point last week about men have children at any age, and why can't women? And you talk about living longer, younger, and having the energy. And how do you get the energy? You get the energy through your curiosity, your vitality, your extraordinary joie de vivre. You're interested in the world. I found you to be so inspirational and opening up so many vistas for women, especially. Of course, this all applies to men. And the idea of being wiser as we age, of actually being happier. And I can attest to you, Dr. Frieda Birnbaum, that I am happier now than I've ever been in my life, as is my husband happier. And frankly, I think my husband looks better now than he ever did. And it's really remarkable what modern science has done for us. Just taking all the nutrients, they're not a lot in the soil anymore, but I have to tell you, my husband and I take lots and lots of supplements. I don't care if it's expensive urine. I'm willing to do it, along with eating nutritionally and moving and exercising. My favorite expression is motion is lotion. Motion is lotion. And here you are at the age of 76. And are you in full clinical practice still?
I am. I have my patients that come. Some of them have been with me for many years, 20 years or so. And it's not because I don't want to say anything funny while you're drinking. And it's not because I haven't been, they're still waiting for me to do the right job, to fix them. But it's because, we are in a situation that we really want to live our standards and our quality of life. Now, it used to be that women used to come in more than men, and women were looked at as aggressive or greedy, where men were looked at as assertive, family men if they worked and they had children, and women were looked at as selfish. So all these things that women came in for as they became more successful became problematic for them. But today, that's changing a lot, and we're going in a whole different direction. So my practice is a lot of men coming in, a lot of things that are going on with the men are going on with the women. The women are the ones that are having the affairs now. And I'm keeping the marriages together, which is not always easy when they announce it, when they're sitting there. Honey, I want to tell you something. I'm thinking, oh no, here it comes. What is she going to say? And it does happen. So, that's the interesting part. But I'm very fortunate that my practice, which is in my office right here, is mainly people who like they go to I have one person says to me, today is my day. I go to the gym, I go to you, I buy stuff for myself. It's part of the makeup today of just always tweaking your life, because everybody, including us, has things that we want to keep taking and coping and getting rid of the stressors. So I didn't answer your question, but yes, whatever you said.
Yes, and the point that you made, one of the points you made last week was to look at what's your void, where's your void, what did you want to do as a kid that you couldn't do now that you have some time and hopefully some resources and you still have your good health to really review and now a lot of us, not all of us, but many of us are in the mode of being able to make choices and to say, what is it I really want to do these days? And you and I are very similar because I also have a full-time clinical practice. And I have a lot of friends who are retired and who are always asking me, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire? And I really am not planning to retire. I may choose to work less if I feel like working less. I, too, have many long-term patients, and I have patients that are new. I haven't taken any new patients in a couple of years, but we have people who are coming back, who want to come back. We have people who ask me, would you please see my sister or my brother? So even though I haven't taken officially any new patients, I still have a full clinical load, and people are staying with me not because they are in a crisis mode, but because they are on their growing edge. And I really dislike the concepts about therapy, that something is wrong with you if you're going to therapy. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I think people who go for therapy are the ones who really want to live a fuller, deeper, even as you say, longer, happier life. And that athletes and top actors have great coaches and directors. Why shouldn't we? Our world is more and more difficult in many ways. The rate of change is phenomenal. And how do we stay grounded as we remain open to the new? And as you say, curious about the new.
It's true. I have people that come to me that they say hello to each other in the waiting room. But then I have a few that go out the back because they're either well-known or celebrities. So they don't want to mingle. It's not because they have, any kind of negativity about therapy. They even accept it and admit to it. But yes, you're right. Today it's taken on a new meaning. People are constantly growing in every way, as we've been talking about. And the same way psychologically, they're growing because life is about change. Life is about making a difference. And when you go to therapy, what's interesting about it is that people who've been in therapy and the people who are not. And you look back and you say, wait a minute, how come they're the same as they always were? It's not that they're so unusual. It's because you're changing and you're unusual, because most people stay stuck in a pattern that they can't avoid because it's conditional. Even if it's dysfunctional, it's conditioned in them. You have to remember it. If you listen to your brain, if you listen to your mind, rather than listening to your habits and behaviors, what's comfortable for you, you'll end up pretty much doing all the right things for yourself.
I like how you put that, Dr. Frieda, that dysfunction is conditioned and it's comfortable. And getting out of dysfunctional patterns, which are very deeply engraved habits based upon, in my view, erroneous beliefs. And with those false beliefs, a lot about the self, in addition to the world and other people, comes very painful emotions. And people often want a different way of being and thinking. and living, but they don't know how. They don't know the alternative. In my college teaching, I always talked about information about what a healthy family looks like, what a healthy person looks like. Of course, loving Abraham Maslow and self-actualization. And Abraham Maslow talked about, at the time he was doing the writing, that there was a fraction of 1% of people who were self-actualized. And then over time, we do have more self-actualized people on the planet as we become aware that we have more potential and we have the means to pursue, as you said, to pursue our passions.
Absolutely. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that we've been brought up in such a way, but our lives are changing at such a quick pace. It used to be that we could pick up the history of our backgrounds and move forward, but they don't apply anymore. Just like I said about my mother and being pregnant at 40. These things don't apply. So we don't have the resources that we used to have in our communities to know the right role models, because the role models have changed. Technology has changed. Even the meaning of life has changed, because we're exploring other planets and possibly living someplace else as well. But all these things, when you're looking at these factors of where people are today, it's very different where they used to be. So you have to really be in touch, even as a therapist, as a psychoanalyst, that's what I am, of where our society is. You know, I had to be trained. I had to be on the couch 3 times a week, and I spend the same like anybody else, no discount, to be a psychoanalyst. And I walked out of one of in my therapy because the person who was supposed to be ahead of me was really behind me, wanted to know about my book. He was thinking maybe he'll write a book. It was like, who's helping who here? So we really have to be ahead of our pace of where we are today. Just not only being a therapist and talking about the pathologies, because often my patients will say to me, oh, how come the very thing my mother did or father, I'm doing the very thing I didn't like? Because we still want to be good and we still want to do the right things, even though they may not even be around anymore. But today, what it means to do the right things has changed. What it means. The reason I walked out of this therapy session was because he said, well, women belong in the home. And I was like outraged. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? No, he said, men belong out there. Women belong in the home. I said, where have you been all these years? Times have changed. So that's why I'm saying, and then I never saw him again.
Dr. Frieda.
Yeah.
What year was this that he said this?
A while ago. Who knows? 30 years ago or something? I don't know. Yeah. Because I've been in practice 33 years.
That's in the 90s. That's very, is. I said, I'm really shocked that a professional, educated man.
Modern Freudian theory. I studied under Dr. Spotnitz, who was the aggressor, taught you how to deal with aggression and rage and all that stuff. And, I just couldn't believe it that I guess at that time, but it just shows you that as a woman, I was outraged. Now, the sad part about this is that women would go to people like him and they would listen to people like him. Where in my gut, I was on fire. And you know what? It's interesting about that. I've always been on fire and I know right away where I need to be. You know, I did a speech once about I'm coming through. Here I am. I'm coming through. Follow your passion. Follow yourself. There's nobody out there that can tell you more than you can tell yourself. You have to be the one that's ahead of it, and they will follow you. I remember once I was listening to Betty Friedan, and she came out and spoke to me. She says, someday you're going to talk to millions. I said, what are you talking about? What? I came to listen to you. And she started telling me about how frustrating it was that when she spoke to these women, they were not really confident enough and independent enough. Well, women are getting there more so now, but still, there's this role playing. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a wonderful mother. I mean, that's the first criteria when you have children. I always make sure that my children are part of my life. We went to a concert. I brought the twins with me, and they're learning about culture. And then, then again, accepting who they are and who their friends are. One wanted to take wrestling. My impulse was to say no, but then I realized this is where they are in their lives. This is where they are in their time. So we have to balance where we are. The couples that I hopefully will be working with in this hopefully new show will also be about what does marriage mean today? Not what it used to be, not what it used to be my time, for sure. We didn't have a prenup. We didn't have a financial prenup. We didn't have an emotional prenup. I had no clue about any of that. So emotional prenup is what I thought about. How about setting the pace for how to argue, how to spend your money, what you want to do with your free time? None of that was discussed. And there's been a divide, and that's where arguments occur. So we're living at a time where people do take separate vacations. Is that okay? Maybe it's not okay, but you have to be on board with it. What does that mean? Will you stay in a marriage if someone's unfaithful? Some people will. A lot of people won't. So that is a new way of looking at life, because today, guess what? You can have affairs, and that will not be a reason for you to have a divorce and get what it is that you want. It used to be years ago that, if you had an affair, everything was, forget about it. Financially, you'd have to pay for it. All kinds of things would happen to you. So things are changing very quickly to the better in many different ways for women, especially, and for men too. Men are more nurturing today. They're living longer because they really don't want to be a slave to work. They don't want to, the millennials, they'd rather have time as their biggest asset, not money like the baby boomers. So that's a wonderful thing, a place. They're very smart. They'd rather have the time with their family than work hard so they can go to some exotic island once in a while. We are assessing the meaning of life today and how we are becoming emotionally healthier with what it is that makes sense. So women and men are trading roles a little bit. They're supporting each other's roles, and everybody's getting some of what the other didn't have, the nurturing, the responsibility that women are taking over for men. It used to be when a man turned 50, he'd say, I wish I would have known. I wish I would have spent more time with my children. Today, men do enjoy being home and taking time off and having that kind of relationship, after school activities, being involved with being a parent, with the kids. So things are shifting with role playing, domestically too. Men are not just coming home and sitting down and reading a paper. They're, get their stuff up there and go get them and do your share of work, because women are working too. So that's changed also. And people are working, getting help, domestic help, so they can have time with the children. So children are very much a priority, because it's the quality of time that you spend and the things that you do with them. And they are watching you. It's not so much what you say, as you know, that they're watching you as role models of who they should be. I mean, my twins, they're very social. They're academically great. Everything's good. But I'm talking to my husband, and one of them will say, how come you said that to Dad? How come you meant? I'm thinking, what do they care? But they're listening. What do they care about this? I'm talking about who knows what. They're listening. They're role modeling what we're doing. Listening. Yeah, the whole thing. So the things are changing quickly today with what marriage means, where women are going for sure, and how to raise children, what that means, what is important. Like my son just said, I want to play tennis today with a group of kids, but I have a test tomorrow. What should I do? Should I do both, or should I stay home? Or, these kind of things, juggling the truth, because men often have delayed gratification as they get older, and they don't even want to do anything because they're so stuck on being productive or making money for the family. So that's something that I have to balance too with my kids. Should he play tennis and be sociable? So I really messed him up this morning. I said, all right, so play tennis a little bit. And then come home and then do your homework. He says, Ma, I'll decide. And he laughed like, what is she saying? Because we're trying to balance both now. It's not only about being a student anymore, because life is not about that. And if you find that socially, people, psychologically, when you're talking about happiness and depression, being sociable is very important as part of being involved with your health. So having a successful career is very good, is very important. And we used to strive only for that. You go to school,
baby boomers for sure.
This is where you have to be. Make the money, have the status, have the power. Money, status, power. What else is there? There's nothing else.
And also remember how competitive our generation had to be. But baby boomers, we were so large, such a large population, and we did have to be competitive. And now it's a whole other story. And I love the term emotional prenup, and it had to have a contract with your beloved on how are you going to handle yourselves emotionally and making these major life decisions? How do we spend money? How do we go on vacation? Do we even go on every vacation together? Do we have separate vacations? What does all of this mean? And what else can I do besides work? And how can I balance what I want to do and the things that I still have some sense of obligation to? You also talked about what I would call role convergence, which is about almost like two ships passing in the night. The man has been in the jungle, so to speak, out in the wide world, and now wants more of the domicile, the domestic life, whereas the woman, and this is the traditional script, has been in the domicile more, and now she's looking to go and experience the wider world again. And I do think there's a lot of opportunity for convergence here.
Yes, women prefer that. They're taking a place where they're missing. And by the way, I know I interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
Sorry. I have a tendency, I do that with my patients, and I shouldn't be doing that, but I do, because when I find when I'm in sync with the moment, you can never get that moment back. And when I tell it later, it's sort of diffused and it's not there. So I just interrupted myself, but we were talking about women who, as children, they're taught to be giving. Mm-hmm. And men, as boys, were taught to be out there, successful, get the grades, get the job. And so today, when they're trading off these patterns that they were given, those are the missing links that they're filling in finally. And what's interesting also is that during divorce, men, guess what? Try to find a better relationship. That's really that emptiness is what they want to fill, that they weren't given those opportunities as children. Girls are hugged more. Girls are emotionally connected more. They're spoken to more than boys. Boys are left to be more independent. And so girls as women after divorce, they want to find themselves. They're looking for that void of seeking who they are. So those are the two missing links. But the reality is, why not do this while you're married? And that's part of the emotional prenup. Get that in. Get your needs in. Communicate. Listen to the other person. Compromise. Leave your ego out the door and go ahead and see what has the best effect, not what's right or wrong. That's where we need to go in our relationships, because sometimes we bicker just because we want to have the upper hand. We want to have the power, where really the power is in the relationship. That's why you're together. So we have to remember why we're together, what that really means. People who are married are actually happier and live longer than people who are not. So that all this that we're talking about, what we need to do in the marriage, it's really worth it in the long run, because nothing is easy. There's always stuff. And if you have it too easy, then you feel like something's missing. So you have to be uncomfortable to be comfortable. That's the only way to get what it is. Sometimes I'll be talking and I'm saying, it's 8:30. What am I doing? Why am I going on this show? What do I need this for? But I'll tell you, the end, when I'm finished talking to you, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to have a wonderful feeling, a high that I wouldn't have had if I wasn't talking to you. So you have to really listen to your brain and what your brain is telling you, not what your body's telling you. Your body's telling you, I'm tired, whatever. And your brain is telling you, this is the right thing to do. And we have to keep using that because, as I said before, when we're conditioned to have the wrong responses, it's like we're being lazy. We just keep going on that treadmill of life and we don't get off of it to make different choices and go in different directions.
Yes. I like how you put what is the missing link here. What is missing? Because unless we declare what is missing, and unless we allow ourselves to yearn for what's missing, we are not going to have the drive, the motivation to go for it, to go for what it is we really, really want. And we can ask this question these days. We no longer have to fulfill a biological role. People who have raised children, you've done it. You followed the traditional script. Now what? And then I think that missing link has a lot to do with androgyny, that we all have the male and the female within us, and society shunts us in one direction or the other. So we're walking caricatures, walking stereotypes. But the androgynous person, studies have shown, has the highest self-esteem.
Yes, that's right.
Male and androgyny gynecologist, female, that we all can be much more whole and androgynous persons. And then we have to close, but you've said so many things, Dr. Frieda Birnbaum, but the idea of eustress coming from euphoria instead of distress coming from disease. Why bother to be a guest on a radio show? Why bother to be a host on a radio show? Because even though there's stress, it's eustress and it's challenge, and we feel deeper and better afterwards. And not only ourselves, but hopefully you and I in these two shows have contributed to the world and help people to think outside the lines. So we have to close the second in our two-part series. Dr. Frieda Birnbaum, author of Life Begins at 60, a new view on motherhood, marriage, and reinventing ourselves.
I like what you said, because feminism today does not mean being masculine. You can be both a feminist, and you can be feminine. The feminine feminist is really where we are today.
And I consider myself a very feminine feminist, as you clearly are, Dr. Frieda Birnbaum. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.